Well, I am joined by great company now. We have an artist in his own right. I am joined by Billy Currie. He's a keyboard player, an instrumentalist with a great career he's had. How are we today? How are you today?
Fine, very good.
It's great to hear it during after everything that musicians have gone through. With the world shutting down, everything's opened up, and I just wanted to invite you on today to talk about your illustrious career. Of course, you were in a band called Ultravox. And
Yeah,
just going back to the start, really, not many people knew that before Midure came into Ultravox, you were around for some years in the 1970s.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, we were around. Yeah, right. I joined what was called Tiger Lily in 1973,
Mm.
and yeah, I joined then, and it was a bit of a slog. It was like you couldn't bring problems into the group rehearsal room. At least we had a rehearsal room at King's Cross, actually. So that was a great. It was a band put together by Dennis Lee, who was actually John Fox, but he was still Dennis Lee at that time. So we had a place to rehearse 4 days a week and all day Sunday. So it was proper work. It was serious. That's why I was very excited about it. And so I joined then. We were called Tiger Lily then. And really, that was it for the next 3 years. We rehearsed 4 nights a week and all day Sunday, which I've said to a few people that I've said that a few times. I mean, that is proper work. I mean, we were going somewhere and we didn't really do many gigs. We did a few. We did do a few. And oh yeah, well yeah, we did before we got a deal. We did play the Marquee, and we did some catering college. That's a very distant memory, but there is some photographs of that on my website. And then we eventually did get a record deal with Island Records in 1976, and then I could drop the horrible daytime job.
Great. And I understand John Fox went his own way. He had his own career, like, with Underpass and so on. This will
Yeah,
take you to 1980 now. Your first hit was Sleepwalk, and when you listen to the song, it's quite raw in the sounds and awe-inspiring as well, considering it's 1980, early 1980, not long after when the synth sounds come in.
yeah, it was. It was just beginning to come into favor. I mean, it really felt like it was coming into our time, and it was like, hurry up. You know, we could even get left behind in our own time because we felt out of time before in the 70s, not quite fitting in. Yeah, Sleepwalk was the first thing we wrote. I nearly said I wrote then. No. But I mean, it actually was. I did come in with an idea of doom, doom, which is the basic thing. And Chris had got into doing doom, 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 doom with the bass at that time. This is where we discovered how to repeat the bass. So it was quite electronic. But I'd just done the Gary Newman tour and I've been doing lots of boom, boom, my conversation. I'd just done the Gary Newman tour and lots of boom, booms. And that was the tip of my fingers. But I did it on a quite a big synthesizer called the CS80. Doom, doom. I recorded it with the ARP though in duophonic. But then the verse is quite anthemic in a way, but not too anthemic. Like you say, kind of got some grit to it. It's down to earth as well. It's not that far away from what we'd been doing live from the new wave and punk thing in a way. It was anthemic, so it gave you it wasn't toffee nose classical. It was da 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 da. So it was this anthemic stuff,
Mm.
and so I contributed that, and everyone seemed to like it, and then and really. It was a great time for the band then because it was the first thing we wrote, and I was lucky enough to have a nice long solo in that, and so it gave me a chance to promote my synthesizer playing, which in some ways it's not exactly held behind. It had just been in a five piece, there was a guitarist to consider as well. So the idea of this out and out synth solo hadn't really come to fruition yet, but it did for Sleepwalk. And we had a great time, Daniel, recording it. We did it with Connie Plank. And the big thing then, we actually did that as a demo to get the deal with Chrysalis. They weren't going to sign us until it gave a demo. So there was a lot of pressure on us when we were recording that. It was in our studios we did it, uh, Oxford Circus. And but it was great to have the experience of Connie with us. I had the backing of Connie because I wanted the synthesizer solo to lift off the record. Didn't want it to sound like do like you're pressing the note down and it's all a bit flat. Being a violin player, I like proper expression, and so we spent some time using the technique we'd learned a little bit earlier on from doing the previous album with Connie Plank, where you record it at the synthesizer solo, and then same time you send it back out into the room again and blast it out through what we used at the time was a Mesa Boogie. I'm not really getting very technical. All it is you send it out through an amplifier speaker, good and loud. You mix it with the synthesizer sound, and it raises it off the track. So we felt like we had fun, and we thought we might have a bit of a winner, but actually we did just have a bit of a winner. It was like I think it was 28 or something in the chart, but we got on top of the pop.
Yeah, yeah. Do you remember that time? To this very day, Top of the Pops. Do you remember it like it was yesterday?
Well, I do. When we got on with Ultravox in the summer, it was summer. We were actually on tour. I do remember it, and we'd just played in Liverpool the night before, and I'd actually been a naughty boy and didn't make it back to the hotel in time. And the tour manager had left a note and some money and said, "You better get on this train." So I came down after the band on the train to London. I felt pretty out of order, to be honest. And I was there. I was there on time, but it was like, phew, boy. And so it was very exciting to do Top of the Pops. It was really exciting because it was exciting because we were buzzing from playing live as well. But
Great.
we had to bring it together to remember that here we are on camera, And it was very good working with. It was very good working with Mitch because I could see that he was used to the camera. I mean, I was used to the camera from being on Top of the Pops all the time, working with Gary Newman, with our friends Electric and the Cars. I've been on Top of the Pops, God, about 12 or 13, 15 times, but I wasn't the front man. But I knew a bit about it. I wasn't qualified with experience. I don't want to sound big. So it was very, very exciting.
Great. So that was Sleepwalk then, and talked about Top of the Pops. Am I right? You were in Visage as well during that time. Was it kind of difficult being in two bands simultaneously?
It wasn't at first because we were edging our bets in a way. I mean, I remember Midge saying when I was working with him with Visage, and then I invited him in later on in 1979 into Ultravox. It was a bit like, oh well, if we don't make it in Ultravox, I'll be the guy pulling the strings in Visage. I'll be co-producing Visage. Hopefully, one of them will work. And guess what? Both of them worked. It was all our dreams come true at first. But then, once you get two bands that are successful, and we were touring, and Visage were just a studio band, it was hard finding time. So we were very successful. Both of them were at the same time, but Visage just a little bit later. So when I noticed them sort of getting in the way of each other a little bit when we went over to do Rage in Eden, the second album with Midge in Germany with Connie Plank, and we were going to write most of it in the studio. And I noticed when we were in Germany that we were actually double number one with Visage. Fair to Go was number one, and the album was number one as well. I mean, it's ridiculous. We were walking around Cologne, and people were recognising us for Visage. But so that was great. But it was a fairly difficult album to make, Rage in Eden. It was a difficult, like, second album being with Midge. It was our fifth with the band. So when we got back, it was like, right, the management managed the two acts. Chris Morrison says, right, I booked you in at Mayfair Studios. That's with John Hudson. He'd moved to a big new studio in Primrose Hill. He'd moved away from Old Bond Street near there, just around the corner from there. It's a little place that we did a lot of our Visage stuff. We mixed quite a lot of it. We mixed Fade to Grey there, just around the corner. I've forgotten the name of the road now. And anyway, we were in. Me and Midge were suddenly in Mayfair doing what actually was a bit of a difficult second album for Visage. I don't want to make it sound too down because I've got great memories of being in that lovely studio, Mayfair, and I was in London anyway. I wasn't stuck out
Mm,
in the countryside in Germany like I had been
mm,
with Ultravox. You know, you could still touch base with reality and normal life a little bit, and we were in there for quite a long time. I've got some very very fond memories of it, but it did get a little bit. It all went a little bit awry in sort of early '83. We had some disagreements, and Midge quit. I was really surprised when he quit. He just didn't like a remix that
mm,
we were we were all liking of Night. It was this New York remixer, 12-inch remixer, and I liked it. You know, I thought, well, hang on, we've gone into soul music. Midge brought us into soul music with the Horsemen. So we got these disagreements, you see, and I followed because I love soul music, and I wrote the chorus for Night Train. So I was, you know, I was in fully invested in it. And when the remix was done of Night Train, I thought, well, that seems like a natural forward development. Why not? We are kind of a dance act. But Midge didn't like that and he quit. So I didn't exactly quit straight away. So it did cause some ruptions with Ultravox as
mm.
well.
So we
So
talked. Yeah.
I didn't leave straight away, you know.
So we talked about a Visage briefly there, and we must talk about Vienna. It is an epic masterpiece in its own right, and one of the most iconic songs, and has one of the most iconic instrumentals of its era. Just looking back, did you feel just a little bit robbed that it was kept off the number one spot by a certain Joey Dolce at all?
Yes, but it was ironic, really. You know, if you go into that, what it is, you've got to remember what it is, Top of the Pops. And I knew what it was because I was fascinated by it from being a kid in the 60s. You know, I was fascinated by it and I knew the craziness of it, what could be number one, just what takes the fancy of the British public at that particular time. I was amazed that it took the fancy for the British public for Vienna. I mean, I was hearing that grandmas were liking it. You know, there was just, oh, Vienna, they just liked it, you
Mm,
know, and I thought that was a bit embarrassing, you know, because well, I'm young, I'm a rock star, you know, I don't want grannies liking it, but it's just what happens, you know. It has to go right across the masses to sell the amount to get right up to number one. I remember the management company phoning me every Monday morning, like they did when I was in working with Gary Newman actually, and they'd tell me how many you'd sold. You know, you'd sold something very close to 30,000 a day, you know, when it got to Friday. So, you know, it was a lot of people buying these records. And so I had to have a bit of a little laugh about it, really, you know, that it's just that's what you're in, that can happen. And Shut Up a Face did have a good chorus.
mm,
I
mm, mm.
can't get it out of my head.
Great.
I was a bit hecked off at the time, but we did have a lot of competition. We had John Lennon, unfortunately, just died, and we were coming back from Glasgow. Again, we were on tour. We were coming back from Glasgow, and we heard that news from Radio One when we were in the tour van, and so we were affected by that a few weeks
Mm,
later by getting knocked off by I think it was Roxy Music, Jealous Guy, and there was a re-release of a John Lennon track. So there's a hell of a lot of competition at that particular
mm,
time. We were unlucky, you know.
mm. Looking back, it did sweep Europe. I mean, you were number one in for Vienna in Belgium, Ireland, and Netherlands as well.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, God, yeah, you know, you've done your own work. Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic.
Not quite number one in Germany or France.
Mm,
We were quite high, but you know, there again, it was a bit. Yeah, oh God, you know, to see that Visage had gone to double number one in Germany, that was uh, that was amazing. We didn't quite do it quite as well as that, and I think it's always been a little bit of a confusion. I haven't quite nailed it. It was something very high in France as well. Like
mm.
I think it was number three in both channels, both charts. Sorry.
So I'm joined.
Yes, but it was just amazing to get that hit, and it's fantastic to have something like that under my belt because I was training at classical college in Huddersfield, and I got a place in the Royal Academy to continue to be a viola player
Mm,
for an orchestra, and I decided not to do that. So I felt like I'd really done something of what I wanted to do. I wanted to bring classical to that kind of pop world. because I was a classical musician, listening to a lot of classical music, like highbrow stuff like Bartok and Hindemith, as well as Brahms and stuff. And then next minute I'd be listening to the Kinks or something, or the Yardbirds or the Stones. I just love pop music as well. So I managed to merge the two. So I felt like I'd been successful in doing that.